everyone. Welcome to another episode of Chanel in the City. We're here at Cubico Studios for iHeartRadio. My name is Chanel Omari. I'm your host, and we're here with a very special guest. I'm a big fan. He is brilliant. He is talented. He's so versatile. He's one of the greatest musical artists I know, and he's changing the game for our generation. He's changing it in fashion and music, television, you name it. One of these artists is someone that you should be looking up to, and he's an influencer. He has over 229,000 followers. He goes by the name Young Paris, but also AKA Paris.
Yeah.
And we're going to get into his real name and his social security number and his blood type. And he's wearing an awesome shirt. Can you just show the shirt? It's African Men Don't Cheat. You heard it here first. We have a lot to talk about. First of all, thank you for doing this.
Yeah, awesome.
I know you're a very busy man, so I feel honored.
It's okay, we're here now.
Because not only are you talented, and you just finished the album Blood Diamond, one of my favorite albums out there right now.
Awesome, thank you. Love.
It's a Afro beat, so you're going to get into what the inspiration behind it is, and the latest single, Hard Way, which I can't stop listening to.
Awesome.
So every time I lose my motivation, I listen to Hard Way, and I'm like, that's right.
I'm glad you're up on the music though. You got your P's and Q's down. It's nice.
Yeah. And you're very handsome. So we're going to get into a lot of stuff today. Relationships, we'll get to the shirt, why you have that on your shirt. But talk to us about this album. And you're signed to Roc Nation, which is, you have so many things, but I like to talk about you as your own identity. But you're also signed to JayZ's label, Roc Nation, which is pretty impressive.
Yeah.
So
shout out to Roc Nation.
Let's talk about that. How did you get with Roc Nation?
So one of the A&Rs there, shout out to Law. I was throwing a bunch of Afrobeats parties in the city. So basically the Afrobeats genre is a mix of contemporary African music. So if you kind of listen to reggaeton and how that kind of new Spanish sound is hitting radio, that's our version, but African music. So kind of sometimes these traditional sounds, heavy drum beats, but mixed with electronic music. So I grew up complementing the music that was around me.
So tell us about your inspiration behind your new album, and also how did you get involved with Roc Nation?
So I was throwing these Afrobeats parties in New York City, and for those who don't know, Afrobeats is basically a mix of contemporary African music. Some of it's traditional drum beats mixed with R&B and hip hop. And there's just a bunch of music coming out of West Africa that a lot of DJs weren't up on, and I was very much in the urban scene of music. So I started putting people onto Wizkid and Davido and Tiwa Savage and Don Jazzy, and just kind of trying to push the culture. Africa is very dear to me, and African music especially is something that I really celebrate when it comes to my craft. So I was just throwing parties around New York City and really putting a lot of people in the culture onto Afrobeats. And one of the A&Rs at Roc Nation just took wind to this project I dropped. It was called African Vogue. And literally 2 months after the album came out, he's like, yo, I've been watching you for the last 2 years, doing this Afrobeats thing, but I think you should come by the office. And I didn't even know what the office was. Ended up being Roc Nation, and I signed within a week. So it's basically, I feel innovative music is always going to transcend culture, and what Africa is doing right now is really amazing and beautiful, and to see how the world is celebrating our music and our culture is really dope. So
I love that. Also, and talking about Blood Diamond, the actual album, why did you choose that name?
Oh yeah, Blood Diamond. So everything I kind of do has some sort of relation to my upbringing, and Blood Diamond was kind of changing the conversation of what people think about with diamonds, because I'm someone that wears diamonds, and a lot of times growing up I would get slack from fans and peers yo, you from Africa, specifically Congo, where there's conflict diamonds, why would you wear this stone? And I think a lot of people feel a sense of guilt when it comes to the diamond, because of its relationships of war and a lot of issues that have happened for them to actually be produced. For me, it's really been the diamond is not really the issue. It's more people and greed. And, a diamond is just a stone that literally looks like a piece of sand or rock in the ground. And it took humans to see the beauty in that and cut it and carve it and polish it to eventually see that it's a diamond. So, I wanted to kind of create a parallel with my album, saying we are the blood diamonds. We come from these conflict areas in Africa, and then we're seen, cut, and polished, and eventually we're on these window displays of the world and celebrated, around the world. So it's a way of saying kind of touching on the first generation African story and saying that we are like the blood diamonds of the world now, because we came from Africa and we really shed our light around the world like a diamond does.
I love that. I love when there's meaning behind music. And I think also, like you said, even with hip hop and R&B, we're seeing a lot of Afro beats being included in the music, and they're trying to take from reggae, from Afro beats, and really change the game. How do you feel about that as an original artist?
Yeah, it's dope. I mean, the thing about me is like there's definitely situations where I can be a little conflictual and I can get my ego involved, but when I try to recognize that at the end of the day it's all love and people are just celebrating culture, people are just learning from, it's not, when you're learning and you're kind of reproducing something that you've learned, you're not always going to translate it the best way. And that's where like appropriation gets involved, where it's like you don't really know our culture, you don't know where we're from. It took years for us to produce, to make us who we are. And what our global signature is, and you're coming in at the fourth quarter and like acting like you're one of us. Like, so there's definitely areas of that where it can feel uncomfortable when you see certain, cultures just celebrating Africanness because it's like pop culture now. And there's certain things that have made me uncomfortable, but at the end of the day, I'm kind of wise enough to know that it's not always going to be done the right way. But, as long as people are celebrating like the base of why we do what we do, I appreciate it. Recently, Essence Magazine just did a cover, and a lot of the theme was like this tribal theme, and like tribalism is becoming so popular, like tribes, and you even hear like people who aren't African saying like, these are my tribe, this is my people. And, I celebrate that, but when I saw the magazine shoot, a lot of fans tag me anytime like celebrities or public figures wear the paint. And for me, I celebrated it. I was like, it's like dope to see how these basically African Americans are wanting to celebrate their culture more. And what made me even more intrigued was looking at the credits and seeing like who was involved, and like they used a lot of African designers and African makeup artists, and like the theme was really with people that come from the culture. And I feel like as long as you're doing it right and you care enough about who's really making it what it is, then we're going to celebrate it. But once you just start taking what we do and making it your own version, it becomes disrespectful.
Yeah, I think what I and a lot of your fans love about you is that you embrace your identity no matter what. So like, especially in America where everyone says it's the least judgmental place, but I feel like it's the most judgmental place.
Yeah.
So talking about the paint and what you use as your artistry, your makeup, and how you incorporate in your fashion, you really you're changing a generation really that's going to follow, and it's so important. How did you come up with it? Was it from just stemming from African culture or also your own?
Yeah, so my father co-founded the National Ballet of Congo in their time.
That's dope.
Yeah, he was a big dancer in the time prior to press and media and that type of coverage. But in that era, they were trying to celebrate not only their contemporary culture at the time, but some of the issues that were happening throughout their tribes and villages in Congo. So like whatever the government was doing or any type of like conflictual civil issues, they would make these like plays in these theaters, and they would do it through dance. This started to like transcend around the world, so they started getting invited to China and India and Europe. My father was a lead choreographer at 13 years old, so his whole life he skipped out on education and was just a performer and a dancer. Fast forward, my mother's a playwright and dancer in New York. She's invited to be in his company in Paris, and they fall in love. Have 10 kids, and I end up
10 kids.
Yeah. So a very big family, and but within that time and that era, when they were creating these outlines of where their particular tribe was, they would paint themselves in African regalia and paint. It just goes back thousands of years of actually specifically the men adorning themselves even more than the women. So the white paint of other colors that we wear always spoke for spirit. So like anytime energy is renewed, whether it's like a new child is born or someone dies in the family, we wear the white to kind of celebrate this transition of spirituality, basically. So my father died in 2012, and usually we wore this for like ceremonies or rites of passages, weddings. But when he died, I started wearing it, and I would do it every day because it was my only way to cope with his death. And I started doing it so much that it just became part of my image, and I would do it at shows. I would go out with it, and people just started to celebrate it, and it encouraged me to to push that into what my actual global identity was. So it definitely stems from real tradition, from real culture. And, you know, I kind of found a way to contemporize it and make it where, you know, if someone that looks like me and, you know, and that could be slightly relatable to you is putting this on, it not only you're curious, but you're kind of like, you know, I want to like be a part of this. So,
Yeah.
you know, what we're doing now is creating this global tribe.
Yeah, definitely. I want to be part of it because I think we can all relate. I think we've all either felt excluded from something or different or not appreciated for our differences. And I think that's what's so great that you're doing. You're letting people know, hey, I'm confident and comfortable with this.
Yeah, exactly.
Which brings me back to the point of like, how do you stay so humble and how do you deal with like haters out there if there are haters? Because I'm sure being a public figure isn't so easy. You know, how do you cope with that?
To be honest, man, I think one of my biggest privileges is I don't have a lot of hate.
Oh, that's good.
Like I never really, my whole career, I've never really had a lot of hate. I think you get the energy that you put out, and I put out a lot of love, and I try to celebrate love, and I think God gives me that energy back. So to be honest, even for certain issues that I've dealt with, just being a public figure, like my fans and the people around me see like my character and what I stand for, and they kind of defend me so quickly that I never really have to do it myself. Not saying that I won't get in trouble or I don't sometimes ignite like, you know, situations that aren't the best decision, but, you know, I think once you kind of know where someone's heart is, you realize like, you know, their intentions are good, and it kind of helps you surpass like these little things, these little issues. So again, I think a lot of times like hate comes from like people being confused about what you represent, and like maybe the message you're putting out is actually attracting a lot of that energy back. And for me, I try to keep a consistent message of like, yo, I'm just here to make people's lives happier.
I love that. I was thinking about that today, actually. I think human nature, you know, when you're confused, like you said, or when you don't understand, you project your insecurities on others. And I think I always train myself. I'm like, come from a place of love. Because I feel like if I come from a place of love, like you said, I'll attract more love.
Yeah, absolutely.
And just obviously successful people like you, spiritual people like you, and I've met many, I think that's why you're on a higher, and it's not that I know you don't feel better than somebody else, but you're on a higher spiritual level because you're operating from love.
Yeah, I mean, you learn that in time. Like, you know, it's actually very simple. Like, you literally get what you give. And I think when you do everything with love, you really walk away with peace in any situation. I tell my guys, people around me all the time, like, no matter how frustrating it may be, just go back to square one and understand that if you basically kind of love yourself in the situation, you're always going to be comfortable and content with what you're dealing with. And again, I never say this in any way to say I don't deal with issues and always know how to handle them, but I try to go back to the square one where I'm like, look, just do it with love, and it's always going to work out, and it always works out.
Right, and especially someone I think who's been worldly, so it's easier to take advice from someone who comes from all different walks of life. So you've hung out with the affluent and the rich and the celebs, which we'll get to, which is a cool part of your life. But you've also dealt with people who've come from poor conditions and homeless conditions, and I think that's what makes you so relatable, is that you can put yourself in anyone's shoes. Mm-hmm. So how hard was it growing up one amongst 10 and also coming from an affluent background? Did it have anything to do with your music, or is it just you as a person? Is it just how you grow, how you learn?
Yeah, no, I mean, I come from a family of music. So my father being a dancer, my mother being a playwright, like you can imagine the household is very bright and colorful and creative. So like we grew up with the arts, you know, we didn't grow up with business and this kind of monetized structure. For us, it was more creativity. So like my parents pushed us, like I've been in plays since I was 3, 4, 5 years old. So, you know, even early on in my career, even to this day in my career, a lot of my themes are very theatrical. Like if you ever come to a real concert, you'll see like dances and masks and colors and like crazy background designs, because I come from theater. So I always try to keep some of that element in what I'm doing with my art. But to be honest, it was a beautiful household growing up. You know, my parents were madly in love with each other. A lot of love in the household. Again, like also having other types of issues. My father dealing with like, you know, some mental instabilities and like and these kind of mental episodes. And you know, I'm getting this is a very new thing for me to even talk about, because I just started to get into this type of language in my album. That's why I'm even bringing this up. But like, you know, it's also another way of saying like, when I talk about this love and this beauty and this kind of privileged background that I had, even though it didn't come from money, it came from just celebration and passion and commitment and unconditional love from my parents. We still had people issues that everyone deals with, but within that space, again, because my parents always instilled with us that we can always fight together through things as a family, it just allowed us to still have that strength and balance with each other. But like any household with a bunch of kids, everybody's running around, everyone's creative, some are more than the others, some get jealous, some are celebrating. Eventually we start to learn to celebrate all of our gifts that we do have with each other. So till this day, my sisters are still in music. All of us are creative in some sort.
Right, that's the thing. I think that people think it's a social or economic background, and I think that people don't realize, that's what I love that you're talking about your life, is that you could come from parents who are actors or wealthy parents or not wealthy parents, a single mom. It's about the work ethic and the love and how you're raised, and if you're wise, or I shouldn't say wise enough, if you're able enough to step within outside yourself and see the world. I think a lot of people say, oh, well, she was on a reality show talking about me. I was on it for 15 minutes. Or he's part of Roc Nation. And instead of being ignorant and not be, they should be open-minded and learn about the person. And I think that's what you do so great in your message of music and just your message of life is I'm not telling you what to be. I'm just telling you how you can cope with being you.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think there's no right or wrong way to do anything. I think, even if you look at growing up rich or growing up poor, to me, there's no difference in that. As long as the parents are still committed to their children, that's just another great livelihood for the kids to grow up to. Whereas even if the parents didn't have a lot of money, as long as they're still committed to the kids, that's also a great lifestyle to grow up around. But I think in America, we get confused of this kind of society that's built on wealth and what success and wealth and those parallels even mean. And I think for me, true wealth has always been happiness. And I see people that I deal with today. I know people with barely anything. They're happy they're so happy it's uncomfortable. And, people with everything and they're miserable, and vice versa. You have people who have everything and they still have a great life, and people who have nothing and they're miserable. So I think it's never really a right and wrong. I think it's all about perspective and what you really want out of life. Because if you want to live a good life, all the options are here. We're all breathing the same air. We all have the same limbs to go out and try to work and make some money to provide for our families, aside those who unfortunately may have had their limbs cut off. But you know what I mean? I think there's kind of this base of perspective in all of it, where it's even me being a creative and doing music or being in fashion or being in philanthropy or the art world, it really just comes back to that perspective of this is a boundless world in society that I can just explore my talents in. And if I feel like I'm attracted in fashion or have some sort of history there, I can explore that. Or if it's in the art world, I can explore that. If it's in helping giving people back, I can explore that. And I kind of try to use my story to encourage everyone to just go out and take advantage of life. Because we all have 24 hours in a day, and so it's always kind of up to you how you're going to spend that day.
I love that. That's just such a great message and to live by, and less pressure, and really enjoy a whole life. With that being said, talk to us about A Hard Way, which is one of my favorite singles off the album, and it's a recent one.
Yeah.
What were you thinking during writing that song, performing that song?
Yeah, so I have, I deal with some women in my life. I'm very attracted to women until I find the super right one. I'm always going to be making music about my experiences. And Hard Way was kind of one of those songs where you're not the best for a woman, but she can't because when you fall in love, it's really hard to fall out of love.
Yes.
Because you took so much time to build that ship that's traveling, that relationship, that when the ship starts steering in different directions, it's not so easy to just let that completely go. And I think it's one of those situations where right before it gets toxic and right before it's, you feel like the separation needs to happen, there's kind of this feeling of why do I keep letting myself be taken advantage of by this person? What does this person have over me? It's kind of like this spell. And I think a lot of artists, we relate to that. We know what it's like to deal with intense relationships. It's kind of our gift and our curse. It's a beautiful thing because we make great music, but it's a curse because you have to go through those emotions of getting your heart broken. And I had my heart broken a couple years ago. But Hard Way was one of those songs where I was kind of kind of playing the bad guy, and the girl's kind of like, you know, I guess I gotta learn the hard way. Like this, you know, I know that I'm not supposed to be doing this, but it makes me feel so good, and I can't really get away from it yet. So I'm gonna beat myself up about it later. And I'm kind of the guy that's like, but you want me, but you love me,
Right.
but you know, I make you feel like nobody can make you feel. And it's like, again, we come from that. We have that swag, that kind of attitude where it's like, you want to be around this so bad that you're gonna compromise. So, you know, I think it's kind of a play on relationships that certain people can relate to, when it's like someone that's there that you know is not the best for you, but you just can't run away.
But at least you're honest about it, because a lot of, you know, and it's not to say all men, but a lot of men that I've encountered they don't want to be honest about it. They feel like being honest about it is just being vulnerable and a loser. But I think actually you being honest about it is beautiful and cool.
Yeah.
And it kind of separates you from the rest, and it makes you real. It makes you saying, hey, I know what it is to be the guy, but I also know what it is to be in the girl situation.
Yeah.
And it is a hard way. It is a hard situation to be in. You know, right? It's just a hard situation to be in. Even I'm sure it didn't feel good when you were the bad guy, quote unquote.
Yeah, I mean,
which I can't even think of you being a bad guy. I'm talking to such a wise, brilliant man. I mean, with your smarts, how do you become bad? I only say stupid men are bad.
No, because I will say, like, wise people sometimes take advantage of their wisdom.
That's good.
Yeah, and I think there's definitely been a couple of times in life that I took advantage of a situation, knowing that I can outsmart the situation. But, you know, in our world, we call that a finesse, which is like my other single called Juicy. It's all about the finesse, where you just know how to up yourself in a situation based on how much value you bring to the situation. And that's kind of like another song about just the flyness and the character of being so wise that you can kind of move in any room and be comfortable. But, you know, I think, again, it comes back to, you know, relationships. I think true artists are like some of the most honest people. You know, you could love or hate Kanye West, but everyone's been affected by Kanye West. You know, he's said things so brutally honest, so vulnerable. That's like, how do you even get in front of a camera and put yourself on fire?
Do you feel like people have an issue with that honesty sometimes? What is it that, why do people have?
Because we're in a world that tells us not to be honest. We're in a world that tells us to be insecure and to hide how we really are. That's why artists are so powerful in this realm of reality, because we are the sacrifice. You know, we're the closest thing to like the stories of Jesus, or like, just in my perspective, because, you know, we take the sacrifice for the people. We go out there and put our whole world on the line and say, like, this is how I feel, this is what I went through, these are my relationships, these are my situations, and I'm gonna leave you out there to judge me, and you don't even know me. So, you know, we take our lashes in those circumstances. And even for you, you could say, like, it doesn't seem like you're the type of guy, but when you hear the song, you're like, this must be coming from somewhere. Like, there's real situations that we deal with that put us into that honest place where we're like, even though this is gonna hurt me, I'm still gonna just say it. It's so transparent that it's crazy. Like, one of my favorite, I think one of the best songwriters is Future.
Yeah.
I think Future he's so honest. It's like he'll paint pictures that you can close your eyes and kind of vision yourself being in his lifestyle. And like, that I can understand, even though I can't relate to certain things, I can understand being in your role, in your position, and having to deal with that these intense feelings of like love, even though you have status, you have structure. Like, and again, going back to musicians, a lot of times you're talking about millionaires who are still pouring out their feelings to the world. So it's like, it kind of reminds you that we all feel and we're all going through these human situations in real time.
That's amazing. I love that. Also, speaking of being honest, Roc Nation, JayZ, one of my favorite artists too, always honest. How did it feel just being in his presence, being part of a label like his, having him be a fan of your music, his label being a fan of your music, you know, because you don't see that all the time.
Yeah, I mean, Jay's you know, he's the top of the totem pole. So Jay's perspective rains down on everybody. You know, my strong relationship within Roc Nation is with Lawrence Parker. He's brought me there, who's very tight with JayZ. And, you know, Jay's, to be honest, even though we've been in several situations to kind of build relations with each other, you know, he's kind of like this Wizard of Oz, you know, energy sometimes, where it's like,
poof, he appears.
You just hear things like, yo, Jay said this, and you're like, oh, okay, I'm gonna focus on that, work on that. But, you know, what I like what they're doing at the label and what Jay's perspective is overall is, and just even watching him build as a fan and to see how much he's impacting culture, it's like he's really pushing the boundaries for all of us. You know, all of us being black in America, being people of color, coming from the situation we come from, and the limits that he's pushing is just beyond all of us. So like, you know, when he comes into the space, wherever it is, he's like very much celebrated as much as he's seen as like a brother to everyone. You know, even when you see like Jay now, and like for me first meeting him, like he had his hair cut with the suit, with a cool like kind of American gangster look to him, and now he's got like dreadlocks, like a Basquiat. It's crazy, almost like he's like aging backwards, and he's kind of showing and celebrating his youth more and his transparency more.
He's also his culture more, I feel, more now.
And because, you know, even within that space, like, you know, there was the controversy like the Barclays Center in Brooklyn and like all this corporate stuff around Jay, and to see like how he flipped that and just became like this cultural influencer that's very relatable is just super powerful. So, you know, he's definitely like a huge mentor just as far as how he moves and how he thinks to me. But again, I think the family and the relationship is definitely opening incredible doors. Like, you know, I think I'm just very grateful to be associated and to be welcome to join them. And like, you know, I think there's no limits with Roc Nation, because, you know, tapping into sports, getting into film, obviously music, and you know, now even cannabis, like it just kind of shows you that somebody from Brooklyn could become this cultural and like corporate icon. You know, it's
Shout out to Brooklyn, I'm originally from there.
dope.
And also, I think what you're saying is super important too, is like the no limits, especially since we're very surrounded by corporate. And I like the fact that even as an influencer yourself, is like you're teaching everybody, be you. And that's what's important, because when you try to be somebody else, you're not going to be successful. If somebody tells you who to be, it's not always about the money. It's not always about the sales, you know? So I really love what you guys are doing.
Yeah, I mean, again, you can't. One thing that I do want to encourage too for any young artist or anyone out there chasing your dreams, or you want to do podcasting, or you want to get into music or the arts or fashion, whatever it is, like you always got to remember that this is not your path. Like her path is not going to be your path. My path is not your path, and no one that you see on TV or you even celebrate. You know, you're going to have your own journey. You're going to have your own struggles, your own situations that are going to get you to what those steps are. And all we can do is kind of be an influencer of what made us get to where we are. But I think a lot of times as artists or as people that are coming up, you look at other people's story and you say like, I'm going to be just like that. That's who I want to be. It's like,
and like, why can't I be that person?
You're never going to, because you're not going to have the same story. God doesn't create these stories.
Like, I want to be Oprah, but I also realized like I had different struggles than she was, you know, faced with, like literally like different colors and the race. And she had, you know, even as a woman, I could relate to her because I've had issues, but you're never going to be that person. You can learn from them. Like, I'm going to listen back to this podcast 10 times and I'm going to learn from you. What can I do that Paris taught me that I could do differently and be maybe more of a person of love, or just look at my own lane instead of, we tend to look at a lot of people's lanes, and you're 100% right. It's a different, I think that's why you're successful, because you don't look at what other people do.
You can't, because you real think about real innovators, real legends, icons. They are them. When you think about Prince and Michael Jackson and Luther Vandross and, you know, they are their own signature in this whole world. They built their own story. And not to say that, you know, Michael Jackson didn't look up to James Brown and didn't see like, you know, didn't want to also be these other icons, but you know, in the end, all you can really do is take strong pieces of their perspective and just apply it to yours. But you see, like, you have Chanel in the city. It's Chanel. It's not like Chanel wants to be Oprah in the city.
Right.
It's like you have your own brand, you have your own identity, and it's really about understanding that you also have your own path. And your path is never going to be anywhere else.
And by the way, it was also challenging for me because I worked in Top 40 Radio. I was at 106.1 BLI, like one of the main DJs there, or worked with music artists. Did TV, but I realized that I had to believe in myself. And honestly, it's because of you guys. Like, when I say you guys, the celebrities that I have on my show, the real people I have on my show that I look up to, like someone like you, has given me the courage and the support to say, do you know?
You have to.
So I want to thank you too, because I learn and I embrace and I love that. Before we wrap up, I'm just going to I'm going to ask you a couple questions about dating and your favorite places in the city.
Yeah.
So as a woman dating in the city, what do you think we need to know? One tip, like to attract the right guy or a cool ass guy like you.
To attract
Keep
the right
him.
guy?
Don't scare him away.
I think relationships, you know what people forget is that a lot of relationships are stemmed on the environment. You know, so like if you get a girl at the club, or if you get her at a coffee shop, or if you get her at an office, or, you know, based on the environment, it's going to kind of, a lot of times it's going to be what she wears, which is going to kind of translate to what she might be into. I think what women kind of tend to not really understand is that guys are very judgmental based on what you're wearing. So like,
Thank you for being honest.
Yeah, if we see cleavage, if we see a little too much leg, if we see the earrings, if we see that you want that attention, you're gonna attract that. Again, you attract what you put out. So, you know, I think no matter what you say, you know, and I know a lot of times I respect that women say like, you know, I'm doing this for us, like I'm doing this for me. I want to feel sexy. I want to feel celebrated. I might want to wear some tight ass pants and have my cleavage on. That's for me, and I respect that as women. And then, you know, another thing that I was thinking about recently, which is really interesting, is that, you know, women kind of tend to dress for themselves and their girls and guys, and I think what we forget about guys too is that guys dress for ourselves, for girls, and also our guys. So we actually, a lot of stuff that guys do is to impress other guys. Like,
Oh, that's good to know. I didn't know that.
yeah, and it's funny, like even watches, when you get it, like women don't care about.
Right, it's for the guys. Like I got my Rolex.
Yeah, so you want the guys around you to be like, oh, that's dope. Look at his watch. Like look at even like women think about it. Like a lot of the frivolous items that men wear, you guys don't really even care so much about them. I think guys are so much more into these little details to kind of impress each other. So that's kind of an interesting thing. But I think again for girls, like you're gonna get a nice guy if you just kind of have that confidence. If you kind of show that you're not too interested, but you are kind of curious about, you know, their presence. And I think, you know, as long as you're you know, the environment, like if you know what you're wearing is going to kind of attract certain men, it's going to kind of help you understand like what you're getting out of like the men that you're attracting. So like, you know, if I meet a girl that's like, it depends, like, cause I like all kinds of girls. So
like, is this outfit okay? Like, not showing too much, but I have a style.
Yeah,
and I'm cool.
You're cool.
I'm cool, right? Like, I'm a cool girl.
But I'm saying, yeah, like, if you dropped a little more cleavage, did a little bit more dark eyeshadow, maybe
then maybe I would be attracted.
It would be like, yo, okay, so she looked like she likes this life. She likes the lifestyle.
Like she wants that lifestyle. But how do you know I don't want that lifestyle also like this?
But I think people.
Right, but I get what you're saying.
They kind of judge it and they figure out. It's just it's a reality. People judge, you know. People do judge. I think it's a reality. I judge. I think we do look at things and be like, okay, I think I have an idea what I'm dealing with here, and then you kind of talk to them, get to know them, and be like, okay, so they either I'm learning something or I was completely right.
That's smart and honest. I like that.
So I think for me, like, you know, I do look at what a woman's wearing, and it will ignite certain things about me. To be like, yo, I could probably jump on that and see if we can hang out for the weekend. Or other ones I could be like, yo, let me try to get her number and then get to know this one a little bit because she seems like a pretty chill chick. So sometimes guys just want to have fun, and girls, and sometimes you really do want to get out and get to know somebody that you could potentially build a family with or like date. So
I love that. And then one more question. What is your favorite place in New York City? African men don't cheat. Just put that in your mind. This is why I date African men, just FYI. PSA, African men don't cheat. I love that. So what's your favorite place in the city?
My favorite place in the city? Ooh, probably Tribeca. I love Tribeca.
Any restaurant or
Soho. Oh, restaurants. San Ambrose is a favorite. Mercer Kitchen is great. Cipriani's great. Miss Lily's. I love Miss Lily's.
Love Miss Lily's too. I love that vibe.
Miss Lily's, what do we got?
That's good.
Soho Grand is a cool vibe to kind of go have a tea for a meeting. I would say that I like Soho a lot too.
And one more question I'm interested in, did it affect you coming, because you have run in socialite circles, right? A lot of people also have known you. Has that ever affected your music, or you don't ever think about that?
No, I don't even think about that. I think people, my signature is different. Like, people look at me differently. I think when people think about me, they're more curious, and it kind of helps them with something that they might be dealing with. you know, again, like even the whole celebrity lifestyle and that vibe, like people, the game kind of made me a celebrity. Like I don't, even though I understand and I recognize the signature, I don't really care too much about that. I think for me, it's more about just being celebrated when I'm in a space and wanting everyone to be happy. Like I just love I love the true idea of celebrity where, you know, someone is so sure of who they are and so kind of vibrant about their presence that it kind of makes you be like, wow, I'm attracted to that person. Like I just want to know more about them or be around them. And I think the part that I have about that with my presence, I do like that. It's a great feeling, especially when you see me with the paint on. Like
Cuba Gooding Jr.
Yeah.
Love that man. Yeah. Love him, no matter what.
Shout out to Cuba.
Shout out to Cuba. We're here for you. We love you.
Actually,
by the way, he respected.
Cuba said that he's gonna. If you see this, man, you gotta hit me, man. He said I should get into some acting.
Yeah,
I'm moving to LA.
I was going to ask you too. Is acting in the cards?
I think so. And I think we're going to try to talk to the CIA. I was my PR in LA. She's like, you know, you got to get into the acting because your personality would be great. And
you'd be great.
Actually, Omari Hardwick, who's another good friend of mine, he told me that too recently. They're about to wrap Power season 6. It's pretty crazy. And I don't even know about the show. I never even watched the show.
I would say like you would be great on that show, but you would be great with Omari Hardwick and I was going to ask you, is acting coming for you? Because I feel like any versatile artist can really tap into acting naturally.
Yeah, I definitely think I want to get into acting. They say I look like Tyrese.
Yes, you do. I was going to say that. I think he's gorgeous. He's a good friend of mine in real life. I love him. I love his work ethic. Yeah. He's hot. You do look like a younger version.
Tell me, people say
like his son.
People say that. Like, I think I should play his son in the movie.
Should play his son or play his life.
I just manifested that.
Or Fast and the Furious 13.
Imagine they make me replace him and I come in and he dies in the movie and I become the new racer.
Yes.
I'm just kidding.
Or you just his little brother and he takes you under his wing.
That could be a vibe.
We're putting those vibes
it's
out.
It's so crazy that we've exchanged several even times on the internet, like in the last 7-10 years.
That's amazing.
Up until like the first joke maybe 10 years ago. And until this day I've never met him and I know so many people around Tyrese, like mad people around Tyrese. Well, I think I'm going to end up seeing him in Dubai or something because he's out there a lot.
So would you say those are like the two artists that you'd want to collaborate right now, like in terms of
acting?
And music?
Music, I want to work with Pharrell.
Pharrell, I met him. He's amazing.
I want to work with Wizkid. I want to work with techno. Acting, I would say probably T.I., Will Smith, maybe even Jaden Smith.
Putting that in the universe.
That could be a vibe.
That's a vibe.
Shout out to Jaden Smith. Jaden Smith is another Jedi, man. He's out here. His perspective is insane.
Jaden, I love him. I mean, his music, it's like,
yeah, and then just his mind, his mind. I think he's a vision. I think he's going to do incredible things for this universe in his time. I think, he's young at it, but his perspective is powerful. He recently just did. Shout out to Jaden Smith. I'm just saying this because I just want to celebrate your energy. He recently did this thing where he's giving vegan food to homeless people.
Yeah, I love that. I support vegan and that whole movement too. Just giving them good nutrition and yeah.
And then they have the company called Box Water, and it's about getting away from plastic because when plastic burns in the water, it releases chemicals while you're drinking. I just think that his perspective and his dad and what they're doing for the universe is just beautiful. I think they're a very powerful family. But yeah, shout out to Jaden Smith. Shout out to all the artists out there that are really just trying to transcend culture and push love, man. I think, a lot of our culture and our people, we've thrived off of this kind of ignorance, and we grew up, with the slave culture of like how to eat and how to celebrate each other. And a lot of it has just been detrimental to our growth because a lot of our, conflicts are culture to us. So we celebrate a lot of things that are killing us in our culture. And I think there's a beautiful new wave of influencers, whether it's through music, fashion, arts, whatever, that are really pushing this message of love and understanding, like, get these negative people, this negative energy away from you and celebrate those who really are there for you. And I think that just knowing that that's becoming this global message, and I see it always on the internet and people's stories, always talking about love and growing as a global community is really dope. So I think, just shout out to everybody out there pushing love and really celebrating culture genuinely.
I love that. On that note, where can everybody download and find your music, and where can they follow you?
Yeah, so it's all at Young Paris, all my socials. My 2 singles out right now called Juicy and Hard Way, and the album is called Blood Diamonds. Make sure you go download it.
All music platforms.
All music platforms, all Young Paris. Shout out to Chanel. This is a great vibe.
Thank you.
Helmet lane, diamonds on my chain. Helmet lane, diamonds on my chain, yeah. Helmet lane, diamonds on my chain.